Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're going to talk about the offense because Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, talked. And he talked about how he's shaping the offense around the strengths of the team and particularly around Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk more about that. Cam Heyward also talked. We'll talk about what he said about his contract situation and what else he revealed. And also some talk about the safety flexibility in the Steelers defense. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. All right, Steelers fans, we're going to get to Arthur Smith, or not to, excuse me, to Cam Heyward and his contract talk because he did talk to us on Monday after practice, and he gave some interesting information. We'll get to that. But I want to lead off with something that Arthur Smith said, or some things that Arthur Smith said, because we got a chance to talk to him and defensive coordinator Tara Lawson, and I thought those were more pointed about what this team is trying to be this year, which is why I wanted to lead with this. But trust me, we will get into Cam Heyward. But one of the things that we've been wondering about is how this offense will look once the season's actually rolling. A lot of us have been talking about, including myself, I've been saying it a lot, the offensive line is going to dictate where this team goes, let alone this offense. And a lot of that's because we've been expecting a lot of running the ball. They're going to be getting better at that. They're going to focus on that. They want to ground and pound people. But once we knew they were getting Aaron Rodgers, we knew, hey, it might not be about ground and pound, but it will be about a balance that includes a good and efficient run game. And I think that's where the Steelers are going to be really interesting on offense, is how do they find that balance between the two? And how do they adapt to what Arthur Smith has normally done with an offense? And that's been one of the biggest questions, I think, all offseason, is how will the offense differ from last year? Because it has to differ from last year because they kind of fell off at the end of the year. But again, I've brought this up. Diana Russini said from The Athletic way back, maybe in March or so, that Arthur Smith was going to be ready to adapt the offense to whenever Aaron Rodgers shows up. And it's something he's going to be up to doing, and he's going to probably do pretty well. And I've been skeptical about it because I'm not sure how Arthur Smith does that, because Arthur Smith's offenses that we've known in Tennessee, it was run the ball with the best running back out there with Derrick Henry at the time. And then Atlanta, it was doing a lot of different things, but around a non-good quarterback situation for most of the time that really didn't work out for him there. And then last year, you had a run game that they ran the ball a lot, but not efficiently. And then they had Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and we all know how all that worked out. But I think the biggest thing for Arthur Smith was, what was he going to try to make this offense like this year? And something I've been noting is how much more the Steelers are passing the ball to the middle of the field compared to recent years. Whether you go back to the Canada days or to even just last year, where they weren't throwing the ball to the middle a lot. In fact, they threw it the second fewest in the league to the middle. The only team that threw less to the middle was the Philadelphia Eagles. Crazy enough, they won a Super Bowl. But you know, we've been talking more to players. We talked to Scotty Miller, and he talked about how Aaron Rodgers is really good at manipulating defenders, and that's something that you want to have in your repertoire. And I got a chance to ask Arthur Smith about that on Monday before practice, and he gave some interesting insights into what he's trying to build in this offense, both with that, and then we also answered the question of the offensive line and a few other things. Here was Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith before practice on Monday at St. Vincent College.
Arthur, you guys seem to be targeting the middle of the field a lot more in practice. You saw the pass to Darnell, pass to Roman early in this game. Scotty's also talked about, it seems like you guys are working more concepts that give options for Aaron to manipulate the middle of the field. What has led to that being more of a big thing this year?
Yeah, go with the strengths of your team. I mean, it's plenty of time last year when we tried to do that in different areas. It's not one person's fault. But certainly when you become too one-dimensional, whatever you're doing, The defense has to say too. If you don't have counter punches, or you got to make them defend the entire field, that opens up a lot of other things.
What's your confidence in this offensive line compared to last year? Just the added experience this group has, and it seems like they are more coordinated in how they're picking up different blitzes in practice and in the games.
Well, that helps. When you're able to, sometimes it's a little bit of luck. You hope to play with the same 5 all year. Obviously, last year was one of those years where we had an injury bug, and we had a lot of young guys playing for the first time. And, they're going through, like any rookie, and so we had a lot of mix and match lineups. So when you have some consistency there, that helps for sure, and that's what you want to see. And so obviously, I got a lot of confidence. I had guys, whoever we put out there, got confidence in, and that's you're going with the guys you got, and that was encouraging. We got 4 young guys playing, and then obviously Isaac didn't play. But love to see that consistency.
Arthur, we saw you with Aaron a lot on the sidelines. What can you guys learn about each other? What's the value of that time together, watching plays as they're happening?
Just talking through things, and just, he's not out there, but obviously he and I have never been together. And Aaron, what's fun about talking football with Aaron, he's got a lot of experience, 20 years, but you just talk through things, just like the question we're asked about situation. There's a million ways you can handle a situation. The best thing is everybody's on the same page. And so it's, he's just trying to make use of his time. He's not out there. And I thought he did a great job on the sideline. Somebody's trying to do that for the camera. He's actually doing it for, real reasons to be involved. And he's been fantastic in that regard. So that's just another opportunity. He wasn't out there. And so just to try to get him involved, and just he and I would talk, or Tom, or he was helping the other quarterbacks. And that was good to see.
So there you have Arthur Smith talking about a few different things. One, he acknowledged, hey, we are forming our offense around our strengths, and the strength right now is Aaron Rodgers is good at reading the field, and he's good at manipulating defenders, and he's good at getting the ball out and taking advantage of those types of mistakes in the defense. That's something that's going to be in flux all year. They're going to keep working on it. They're going to try different concepts. But I think being fair to Arthur Smith, he's never had this before, and this could make it a much different offense when you look at how the Steelers are going to operate compared to anything they've done on themselves or how Arthur Smith has done. So it makes me a little bit more open-minded to what I think the Steelers should or should not be this year on offense. For the longest time I was thinking hey, they got to come out. They got to be really good at this outside zone run. You got Caleb Johnson, build this O-line up. They're going to be pounders. They're going to bully people. And I still think that needs to be a part of it. This offensive line has to mature. There's no doubt about it. Even if this offensive passing attack comes out and, leads, I'm not going to say leads the NFL, but is a top 10 passing offense, which would be crazy. But even if it's like that, this team needs that run game to be effective as well. And I think what Arthur Smith might try to do, and I've brought this up before, but what Arthur Smith might try to do is, while that offensive line is coalescing, while it's gelling and coming together and figuring each other out, he might be trusting Aaron Rodgers to carry the team a little bit more in the earlier part of the season. And then later in the season, if that offensive line is coming together, then he'll start leaning on them a bit more. And that might give you some variance in the offense that might be more advantageous to you and make you more or unpredictable, or make you less predictable down the stretch. And that could be interesting for the Steelers, because one thing that does happen to teams, and this isn't just the Steelers, this is everybody. You can ask Peyton Manning, because it happened to him a lot. But the way that you play during the season, teams study that up and down when they go into the playoffs. And then when you get to the playoffs, if you don't switch things up, they're very prepared for the things that you like to do. And that's why Peyton Manning, I thought for years, was so sharp in the regular season, and then things would flip on him in the postseason because teams would be all over the complexities of his game, because he was like, hey, we're going to keep coming at you with the things that we did all season that worked. And I think that this could really be beneficial to the Steelers if Arthur Smith comes out early. Aaron Rodgers is kind of leading the offense early on while the offensive line's figuring it out. And again, I think they took some really good first steps in this first preseason game. I wrote about that for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette with Broderick Jones. We talked about it on the Monday episode. So there's a lot there. But as that unit becomes a better unit this year, they're going to have some games that are not good games. They're going to have some games where they're going to need someone else to help carry the load. And that might be where Aaron Rodgers comes in the most value, is that he buys them time. And then ideally, if everyone's healthy and the Steelers are in a playoff position at the end of the year, you could have a passing offense that has carried you for a part of the year, or at least been the better part of your offense for a part of the year. And then all of a sudden that run game is manifesting. It's becoming dangerous, and it's becoming a 1-2 punch that people aren't fully used to defending yet. And that could make you a more unpredictable team down the stretch and a more dangerous team heading into the playoffs. And that could be really interesting. And it makes me have a more open mind to what Arthur Smith is trying to do with this offense. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I got to talk about Cam Heyward. We got a chance to talk to him. I want you to hear from him himself, because I thought it was very interesting the way that he approached the questions about his contract situation and the things that he brought up. And it made me rethink how I've been looking at his contract situation, even though I've been looking at him and I get it. I get what he's trying to do. So we'll go over all of that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you that this show is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year because NFL kickoff is almost here. And that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and Locked On Steelers listeners are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and the updates they're rolling out this month are wild in the best way. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues. It's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy the best one yet, only at Yahoo Fantasy. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Also, I just want to point out, we are trying a little bit of a different configuration with our cameras and microphones. We're trying to do something more travel-friendly here. So pardon our dust if there's some things that you may think are a little different or different sounding or different paced. We're working on some things here. I switched some things up when I came back here from Latrobe because I know we might be traveling a little bit this year and need some better to-go situations than just taking my whole home setup and bringing it with me wherever I go. So that being said, let's get into the Cam Heyward discussion, because this has been all the rage in Pittsburgh. Now, I know that there's a lot of listeners and viewers that I have outside of the Pittsburgh market, because Steelers Nation is everywhere. Steelers fans far and wide, different states, different countries, all over the place. We know because y'all call into the call-in line all the time from different places. But you might not be hearing what's being said locally, especially when you call into local sports stations, and there's a lot of people upset at Cam Heyward for asking for more money or for asking for a better contract after he just signed an extension last year. Now, I said when this first came out, we talked about that on this show, I don't see a problem with Cam Heyward asking for it. When I looked at the average per year basis of what the contract's giving out to him, he ranked 22nd among NFL defensive tackles. And as he brings up, and we're going to play this clip in a bit, he actually ranks 30th of all defensive linemen, like so including edge rushers. And he was the first team all-pro defensive tackle last year. I get why he wants more money. The negotiation of that contract was coming off of a year that he was injured and he played injured, and he didn't have his best year. But now he wants his money. And he kind of talks about that in this upcoming clip, but he also brings up some interesting tidbits of what was going on behind the scenes between him and the Steelers, both with those negotiations and with these negotiations. So I think it puts a few things into perspective. I want to play you the clip, though, so that you can judge for yourselves based off of what Cam Heyward's saying. here was Cam Heyward after practice on Monday. He still didn't practice. He has practiced before in training camp, but he hasn't for a while. The Steelers are fine with that, by the way. He's Cam Heyward. He's all pro. He's 36. He's fine. But this was him after practice when he was taking our question.
Cam, you kind of, the holding news kind of surprised all of us. We've seen you in practice. How did this transpire? When did you kind of tell the team that you wanted a new deal?
Since late February, I think.
Okay.
With the combine, my agent, I've been talking. Nothing really to report there.
Cam, what are you looking for?
Looking for my contract to be addressed. Honestly, looking to be valued. In my eyes, when I look around and at my position, I think I'm like 22nd as a D-Tech on 36 as a D lineman, and I know what I bring to this team and what I'm capable of on and off the field. And so it's hard for me to, after the year I've had, to really justify playing at the number I'm playing at. I understand I signed a contract last year, but to be completely honest with you, when I signed that, I told them, when I have an all-pro year, expect me to come back. And you can look at the contract and see what it was, but I think everybody kind of giggled a little bit, but in my heads, I used it as motivation to go out there and prove it.
Cam, looking back, do you wish you would have just signed like a one-year prove-it deal?
For me and my family, we value stability, but at the same time, I value being valued as well. I've had conversations with my wife as things have started to pick up, and I can't complain about what happened because I was coming off an injury, which I chose to play through and be there for my guys because at the end of the day, I want to be there for them regardless if I'm on this team, but can't cry about spilled milk.
That's Cam, what was it? One thing to follow up on Ray's question, there's bonus already this year, right? You got the bonus advance?
That was just a roster bonus. That was them deciding if they wanted to cut me or not.
That you had that as security as opposed to a one-year deal, right? You just had that?
I think in my eyes, when I look at it, they could have cut me last year. The way I was approached, I was asked to take a pay cut. We ended up getting a deal done. But when I look at the market and I look at what I've done, it's hard to really wrap my head around playing at a number where I'm not even, half of what the rest of the market is.
So I think Cam Heyward brings some really good points. One, he talks about how basically last year when that extension was negotiated, it started with the team coming to him and he was worried about being cut after his injury, and the Steelers were talking about a pay cut. And so when he said that, I was like, let me go check some things. So I went and looked at his contract numbers, and sure enough, when he signed, and this is just average per year basis, this isn't the raw numbers of year to year, but when he signed his contract in 2020, that was a $16.4 million per year deal on an average per year basis for 4 years. In 2020, that was that was a pretty good deal for the time. That was for its time, that was about 8.3% of the Steelers salary cap. Now, a reminder, when we're talking about salary cap numbers, you're going to be instinctively like, okay, well, I hear this $1 million and I hear this $1 million, and they sound the same, but they're not, because it's all about the percentage of the salary cap that money takes up, right? Because it's all about, so it's not about the raw numbers that the Steelers are giving you. It's about how much of their salary cap are they giving you, because it's relative to each year. For example, in 2020, when he signed his 2020 extension, which was $16.4 million a year, the salary cap was $198.2 million per team. So that was how much they could spend back then. Last year, it was $255.4 million per team. So when you looked at these average per year bases in 2020, he got a $16.4 million contract per year for 4 years. And then in 2024,
that became on an average of $14.5 million. So not only did the number itself go down of an average per year basis by about $2 million, 1.9 to be exact, but the percentage went down from an 8.3% to, I believe, close to like 5% when it comes to the raw numbers of how much of the salary cap he was taking with the deal that he got last year. And so he's right. They approached him and they gave him a pay cut last year. And so when we're talking about, oh, he got a new deal and this, that, and the third, he got a new deal because they wanted to chop how much he was making of their salary cap because they were concerned about his age. They were concerned about that injury, and they were wondering, we love Cam Heyward, but do we need to protect ourselves in case this is the end of his great career with us? And so he, brings up that last year when they were doing these negotiations, and he says, when I make first team All-Pro, I want a better deal, and I'm coming back and I'm asking for one. And he said people chuckled in the room. Now, that's a little bit of tea from Cam Heyward. That's something that we did not know, was that there has been a spark between him and the Steelers about that. Like, he doesn't just throw that out there by accident. It's not just him just letting something slip. He wants us to know that the Steelers undervalued him. And when he told them that he would still be this superstar defensive tackle that he has been for the past several years, they kind of chuckled at it. And now the they could be relative. It could be Omar Khan, probably is Omar Khan is one of them. But who was in the room? Maybe Mike Tomlin was in the room. Maybe Andy Weidel was in the room. Could be a lot of people. Could be Art Rooney. Who knows? But point is, he felt disrespected by that. And he said, bet. And he came out there and he had a great season. He was arguably the best Steeler on the field. I get why he's asking for this money, because he's saying, hey, you undervalued me last year. You cut how much money I was making, and all because of one injury at my age. And again, you're probably thinking, oh, well, is he injury prone? No, he's not. Because you know what? That is the only season in the last 4 years where he has missed even a single regular season game. Cam Heyward has been almost an Iron Man for the Steelers for the past several years. If it wasn't for that injury, that again, he fought that through to help them try to get back into the playoff race. So if I'm Cam Heyward, I totally get it. And now it even makes more sense, because he's saying like, hey, look, you guys said it was a business when you cut down how much I was making per year and you cut back on how much I was making of your salary cap. Now it's like, okay, clearly I'm better than that. And clearly I've still got it at the age that I'm at, and I want what I've deserved. And I don't have a problem with that. And I know there's some people out there that think that, I work this blue collar job and I'd just be happy with however many $1 million that I made. But no, you wouldn't. If you were the best in the world, and I mean in the world, you think about it. Every year there are hundreds of thousands of high school football players, right? And then 1% of those guys go to college football. And then less than 1% of those guys make it to the NFL. And then less than 1% of those guys become first team All-Pro guys. So you're talking about of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. That's how elite Cam Heyward is. So if you work in your job in an office somewhere are the absolute best of the 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 best, you bet you would want all the money you could make off of your job. And you would be saying, hey, pay me what I'm worth. And I think that's where Cam Heyward's at. And I think that deserves more respect. I've seen a lot of Steelers fans really upset about this. And I'm just like, guys, you don't get it. These guys aren't just average, everyday dudes doing this job. I know it's a game. I know that you played this game as a kid. I know that you watch this game. I know you play Madden and you think that all of that's relative. It's not. These guys are amazing athletes that no one else in the world can do this job the way that they do it. And especially when you are first team All-Pro, the third, fourth time, however many times it's been in for Cam Heyward, and you're a team leader, and you've been a Steeler for life, and you've been carrying the banner, and you took that pay cut last year. I get why Cam Heyward is asking for what he's asking for.
So let me know what you think in the comments. I personally think he's right to ask for it. I also think this is going to get worked out. I said this back with the TJ Watt deal this past year. I said this about Cam Heyward's deal last year. I think that this is going to be like, hey, the players have to represent their side strongly. They can't just be like, oh, we'll take whatever deal you give us, because then they won't get the deal that they really want. It's part of the negotiation process. But I think the Steelers, and just based off of just my conversation with everybody else about this, and including Cam Heyward, I think the Steelers are going to give him a deal. He's going to get a deal. He's going to say, all right, that works for me. It's going to up his valuation, and that's going to be fine. And then by the start of the season, this shouldn't be an issue. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but I've been right about a lot of these negotiations lately. So that's that about Cam Heyward. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about what Terrell Austin said, because I asked him some questions about the safety position, because we haven't been so sure about what they wanted to do at safety. I want to talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before Week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. One key future bet is always who is going to be the MVP. Now, right now on FanDuel, Lamar Jackson is the favorite at plus 430. That's a pretty good bet. I like Lamar Jackson in that situation, but I'm really intrigued by the odds on Jaden Daniels right now being plus 1,000. I thought he had a great rookie season. I think they'll keep Terry McLaurin. If they do, I'm hammering plus 1,000 on Jaden Daniels. That's the 5th best odds of all players, and I like his odds if they go off this year. Visit FanDuel.com or visit the FanDuel app today to start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're going to continue this discussion. We're going to shift the discussion actually to the defense and talk about another position, the safety position. Now, I asked Terrell Austin some other things about the defense, but I want to save that to lead a show, maybe tomorrow if nothing crazy happens with the last day of training camp. Also, if you're watching this on Tuesday, this is the last day of training camp. I'm in Latrobe here. I'll be covering the last day of Latrobe. Wednesday, they will break camp. There's no practice for us to monitor, so there won't be any practice there. But there is that joint practice that I will be at to cover, where they practice against the Buccaneers before their preseason game with them this weekend. So that's kind of where things are as far as training camp goes. But I think it's going to be really interesting, because we asked Terrell Austin some bigger questions about the defense, about the pass rush, about the playing around TJ Watt and the playing around coverage. I thought there's some really interesting answers there, but I feel like we'd do it an injustice to not address that at like the lead of a show, or to have more time with it than just the last segment. So there was another question that I asked him, because I was just trying to get some specifics that I thought was interesting, and it was at the safety position and where guys kind of fit in the secondary playing safety. Here was Terrell Austin, Steelers defensive coordinator, when I asked that about him before Monday's practice at St. Vincent College.
Chuck and Juan seem to be very fluid with their safety position. Is there any formality to strong or free with them, or is it just more of like a play-to-play responsibility type of situation with them?
Yeah, we're just going to let those guys play. They're obviously being veteran guys. They could, do it either way in terms of being up or back. So we're just allowing them to play, take care, let them play to their strengths and do things, because they learn well. It's not too much for them, and so I like what they're doing, and the flexibility that they have when they're working together seems to work.
Does the same thing apply when DeShon's on the field? It's like all three of them can kind of just rotate like that?
Well, I'm not going to say all that, but we all know that Sean does really good when he's closer to the box, and so I'm going to try to keep him in his where he's really good, and then we'll just go from there.
So I thought it was really funny. And I was just like, oh, so Juan Thornhill, Chuck Clark, they can just play whatever safety position. So I guess DeShon Elliott too, right? And he was just like, I ain't going to say all that. And I was like, that was pretty funny. All right, TA. But Terrell Austin brings up some interesting things there. And it kind of confirms what I've been seeing in practice whenever Chuck Clark or Juan Thornhill are on the field. Now, I want to say, in the preseason game and in practice, I've been impressed by Juan Thornhill and Chuck Clark. And I think Juan Thornhill has held on to the free safety position. I think that he's been doing pretty solid there. He's not letting guys get behind him too often. He's coming up and making plays. You saw the big hit that he had for separation. It was completely legal, shoulder into chest, big hit, acceleration. You'll like that kind of stuff. He's communicating. I don't see him out of position too much where, Jalen Ramsey or Joey Porter pointing out like, hey, man, you're in the wrong spot, like we saw a lot last year. Or DeShon Elliott, who said that guys can't be wide, bleeping open. So that seems to be a good thing. But I like the idea that both Chuck Clark and Juan Thornhill can be flexible to where they line up. And they have been. I'm seeing Juan Thornhill. You saw with that big hit. He's coming up and he's hitting guys in intermediate routes. But he's also playing those deep balls. Chuck Clark's doing the same. I saw Chuck Clark flying up to the line of scrimmage to help Peyton Wilson against the run early in the game on Saturday against the Jaguars. That flexibility is going to be really interesting to play with because, again, neither of those guys are the guys that you're fearing the most in the defense, right? And this is where things could get really interesting and tricky if the Steelers do the right thing with their defense and these guys are healthy and playing well. Because when you have this many stars on the defense that everyone has to pay attention to, and I mean TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith on the outside, they got to pay attention to those guys. They're dangerous. Cam Heyward on the inside, got to know where he's up at all times. But now that you have Jalen Ramsey, who can line up in the left outside, the right outside, in the slot, and move all around, and you're trying to avoid him, and then Joey Porter Jr., if he has a good year, which I think he did, he had a really good practice on Monday. If he's able to if they're able to do all of that, you're going to be so busy as a quarterback, as an offensive coordinator, saying, okay, avoid all of these guys and know where they are at all times. And while you're doing that and the play's happening real fast and you're getting hit and the game's wearing on, that's when the mistakes start happening. And that's when a Juan Thornhill can take advantage of more mistakes, as well as Chuck Clark, as well as other guys like Peyton Wilson, like Patrick Queen, like Darius Slay, like everyone else out there. And I think that's what's going to be interesting about this defense is that as long as they keep up the communication and as long as the top guys are healthy, because that's a big part of what this defense is supposed to be, there could be a lot of trickeration in this defense. And the lining up of where guys start the play, where they are moving pre-snap, what they're trying to show you to make you think they're in, all of that could be a really big key for what Terrell Austin's putting together. And that'll lead to what I think will be our lead topic tomorrow, because I asked him about, hey, you have coordinated a top 10 defense in scoring for 3 straight years. How do you make it a top 5 defense, a top 3 defense? And he gave an interesting answer, but he also talked about alignment when we talked with him. And as far as pass rushing and the input from other coaches, because that hasn't been his specialty. And as far as designing blitzes and being aggressive there, he's been more about aggressive coverage switches. That's going to be the topic that we talk more about on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Steelers podcast, because that's why this team could be really interesting this year. We talked all about how Arthur Smith is playing to the strengths of the offense and what could be developing there. But this defense has a lot of strengths, and how you play to them in concert to try to make them a truly competitive defense on all sides, that could be the trick that makes them either a very good defense that's top 10 or an elite defense that's top 5, top 3, or even, as Juan Thornhill says, number 1 in the league. That's it for here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, whatever your social media app is. Usually I'm there. At Carter Critiques is my handle every single time. Read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. I wrote about Broderick Jones for a film study that was up yesterday, so you can check that up and go through how he did. I thought he did well. You can also read about my training camp observations from yesterday as well in Monday's practice. The defense won 7 shots, but the offense was going deep a little bit. And I thought there were some interesting things there. So read about that in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. But as always, find this show, the Locked On Steelers podcast, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content, like our daily recaps of training camp practices and our weekend reports post games of Saturday games and stuff like that. Thanks again for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm Chris Carter. See you tomorrow right here on the same channel.